Hare Krishna. Let us understand Bhagavad Gita as it is, written by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters. So let us understand these chapters section by section. Before we begin the discussion, let us offer our prayers to our spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada and Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today let us understand the fifth section of the fifth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Fifth section is from Shloka number 25 to Shloka number 29. This section is entitled Liberation in the Supreme. So let us understand this section. Lord Krishna says, Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Rishaya Kshina Kalmashaha Chinnadvaidayata Atmanaha Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. One who is beyond duality and doubt, whose mind is engaged within, who is always busy working for the welfare of all sentient beings, and who is free from all sins, achieves liberation in the Supreme. So here Lord Krishna is describing the principles of liberation. What are the symptoms of a person, what are the qualities of a person who is eligible for liberation? So Krishna is telling, Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Rishayaha. Those rishis or those mystics or those people who will achieve Brahma Nirvanam or liberation in the Supreme are Chinnadvaida, one who is free from all dualities of pains and pleasures of this material world. Chinnadvaida Yata Atmanaha, one who is always busy in self-realization, who has controlled his mind, who has controlled his senses, and then Sarva Bhuta Hite Rata, one who is working for the welfare of all living beings. And then Kshina Kalmasha. Kshina Kalmasha means one who is free from all sins. So these are some of the qualities which are essential for a person to be liberated from this material world. We perform sinful activities to enjoy artificially, to enjoy through this material body, which is not actually the nature of the soul. To enjoy really, the soul has to serve Krishna. But when one wants to give up his relationship with Krishna and enjoy independently and perform activities just for the sake of material sense enjoyment, those activities are called sinful activities. So a person who wants to get liberated, he has to stop all sinful activities. He has to work only for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. When he works for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, he understands Krishna is the Supreme, and he understands all the living beings in this world are parts of Krishna. So he works for the welfare of all the parts of Krishna by encouraging them also to become devotees of Krishna. This is the best welfare activity. Actually, living beings in this world are suffering because of their forgetfulness of their relationship with Krishna and thinking that they are the material bodies. Identifying oneself with the body due to ignorance of one's original relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna is the root cause of all problems. Whenever there is a problem, we have to do root cause analysis. Just solving the problem on the surface level will not actually solve the problem. So we have to go to the roots from where the problem has begun and solve the problem at the root. In the same way, welfare activity we see in this material world, many people they perform so-called welfare activity just for giving some bodily comforts, just like opening hospitals, distributing food, distributing clothes, giving free education. In that way, there are so many philanthropic institutions. There are people working for the upkeep of material body. They want to keep the body fit and fine and promote activities which are meant for keeping the body healthy. But actually, this is not real welfare activity for the soul. Real welfare activity of the soul or every living being is to teach him that he is not the body, he is part of Krishna, he is spirit soul. And spirit soul can be happy only when it connects with the Supreme Lord Krishna through love and devotion. So only a devotee who is liberated, who himself knows this knowledge and who himself is practicing bhakti to Krishna, he can only perform the best welfare activity. So to perform best welfare activity, first of all, one has to have transcendental knowledge. He has to know who am I, he has to know who is God, he has to know how to connect with the Supreme Lord, and then he can teach all these things to every other living being. So a person who is liberated in the Supreme, he controls his mind, he controls his senses, he works for the welfare of all by teaching the principles of Bhagavad Gita, he practices it himself, and then he is free from all sins because he knows Krishna is Supreme. My only business is to please Krishna. So he does not perform any activity which doesn't please Krishna. Any act which doesn't please Krishna is called a sinful activity. So a devotee being engaged in loving devotion to Krishna, he does not divert his attention for sense pleasures. Therefore, he is free from all sins. So these are some of the principles of liberation in the Supreme. Further, Krishna says, Kama krodha vimuktanam yatinam yatachetasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam. Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. So here further Krishna is describing the principles of liberation. Kama krodha vimuktanam yatinam yatachetasam. Yatachetasam means one who is constantly working for self-realization. He has to be free from kama and krodha. Kama krodha vimuktanam. One has to give up all desires to enjoy independently. One has to give up the desires to enjoy the fruits of his own action. We can perform our prescribed duties and offer the results of our action for the pleasure of Krishna. That is called karma yoga. So when people forget their relationship with Krishna and work hard just for bodily enjoyment, working hard and enjoying the results of their work, then they become entangled in this material world and they will have to take birth again and again. And suffering in this material world is because of the material body. We are all under the laws of material nature. No one is free from material laws. Unless we surrender to Krishna, we cannot become free from the stringent laws of nature. We all undergo birth, death, old age and disease, which are material laws. No one can change it. And because of this material laws, we all suffer in this world. Therefore, if we have to get out of this material nature, we have to surrender to Krishna. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Daivi hi esha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya Mamevaye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. Krishna says this gunamayi maya, this material energy which is comprising of the three modes of material nature, it is very, very difficult to overcome. Daivi hi esha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. But Mamevaye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. One who surrenders to Krishna, maya metam tarantite. One can cross the material influence and be situated in trance, the transcendental state of Brahma Nirvana, the original state, the state beyond material existence. So that can be done when one gives up independent desires to enjoy independent of Krishna, and one becomes angry when the desires are not fulfilled. So a devotee understands that whatever he is getting in this material world, it all belongs to Krishna. Whether it is pleasure or pain, a devotee understands that it is all given by Krishna and I enjoy pains and pleasures because of my own past karmas. So a devotee doesn't blame the Supreme Lord for his condition. So therefore, understanding the laws of this world and then understanding oneself, understanding the Supreme Lord, all this is very essential to lead a peaceful and happy life. And those who are constantly striving for liberation by giving up desires and anger, and they are assured of liberation in the very near future because of their constant endeavor. So an example is given in the scriptures that Darshana Dhyana Sparshaner Matsya Kurma Vihangamaha Swanyapatani Pushnanti Tataham Api Padmaja. By vision, by meditation and by touch only do the fish, the tortoise and the birds maintain their offsprings. Similarly do I also, O Padmaja. So here a very nice example is given. The fish brings up its offsprings simply by looking at them, and the tortoise brings up its offsprings simply by meditation. When the tortoise goes to the water, it just meditates on the eggs which are in the land, and in that way it brings up its children. And then similarly, a devotee in Krishna consciousness is, although far away from Lord Krishna's abode, can elevate himself to that abode simply by thinking of him constantly. By engagement in Krishna consciousness in various devotional activities, a devotee is always thinking of Krishna. So just by thinking of Krishna, one is assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. So next, Krishna describes how to achieve this Brahma Nirvana state. So Krishna says, Sparshan kritva bahirbāhyam chakshuschaivantare bhruvo prāṇāpānau samau kritva nāsābhyantara chārinau yatendriya mano buddhir munir moksha parāyana vigatecha bhaya krodho yassada mukta eva saha. Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, thus controlling the mind, senses and intelligence, the transcendentalist becomes free from desire, fear and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated. The devotee is already liberated in the Supreme because of his constant engagement in Krishna conscious activities. Those who are not practicing pure devotion to Krishna, for them Krishna is giving a method of achieving that Brahma Nirvana stage by the mystic process of Ashtanga Yoga. A synopsis of that Ashtanga Yoga is given in this shloka. More details are elaborated in the next chapter. So here Krishna has described that Sparshan kritva bahirbāhyam chakshuschaivantare bhruvo. One has to meditate on his vision between the two eyebrows, suspend the inward and outward breath within the nostrils, and then he has to give up desires for enjoying, give up fear, give up anger. So all this is possible when one has the faith that the Supreme Lord is maintaining me. My desire is to fulfill the desires of the whatever desires the Lord has, we can adopt those desires and work to fulfill the desires of the Lord. This is called being one with the Supreme. Being one with the Supreme doesn't mean that we become merged in the Supreme Lord. We maintain our individuality eternally. Krishna, God, is an eternal individual. He is always a person. We are also individuals. We will also remain persons always. We can become one with the Lord by accepting the desires of the Lord and working to fulfill the desires of the Lord. Just like Lord Krishna, he wanted to kill all the kings assembled in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he wanted to establish religious principles by enthroning Yudhishthira Maharaj, giving the administrative control to the Pandavas because they were devotees, and when devotees are in power, they will perform all welfare activities needed for the spiritual elevation of the entire society. Therefore, Krishna wanted the Pandavas to rule the whole world. Duryodhana was not a devotee, he was a demoniac person. He was against Krishna and he was very, very inimical towards the Pandavas. So he was not a qualified person to be on the throne. So Krishna wanted to take the power from Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana and give it to the Pandavas. So for that purpose he wanted to kill all the kings assembled who were supporting Duryodhana. That was the desire of Lord Krishna. But Arjuna, he thought, if we kill all of them, then they're all his friends and relatives. So he will suffer because of the loss of his friends and relatives. Arjuna was thinking about his own pains and pleasures. But when he heard the entire message of Bhagavad Gita, he understood that his only duty is to please Krishna because he is part of Krishna. Just by pleasing Krishna, he will be happy. When he understood the entire message of Krishna, entire message of the Bhagavad Gita, he gave up all the material attachments and he fought very vigorously just to please Lord Krishna. This is called union with God. We can become one with God by pleasing the Supreme Lord under the guidance of an expert spiritual master. So, this state which one achieves by practicing Ashtanga Yoga, which has Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi. There are 8 stages in Ashtanga Yoga. So, the stage of perfection which one achieves after practicing all these 8 stages, a devotee of Krishna achieves immediately because he believes Krishna, he accepts the desires of Krishna as his desire, he works hard for pleasing Krishna, is always meditating, already is in dhyana stage, by constantly engaging in devotional activities. Therefore, the perfection of Ashtanga Yoga is already achieved by a devotee. Therefore, becoming a devotee is the easiest method of achieving perfection, achieving the Brahman in Nirvana stage, rather than undergoing the difficult process of this Ashtanga Yoga. So all these things will be explained in the next chapter. We will understand that in the next chapter. Further, Krishna says, Bhoktaram yajñatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram sufridam sarvabhutanam jñatva mam shantim richati. The sages, knowing me as the ultimate purpose of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. So here Krishna has given the peace formula. He has told that one who knows that Krishna is the enjoyer of all sacrifices, Bhoktaram yajna tapasam. So in any sacrifice which is mentioned in the Vedic scriptures, there is an enjoyer of those sacrifices. And the enjoyer of all sacrifices is the Supreme Lord Krishna. After the Lord has been offered various things for his pleasure, the prasada, the remnants of those offerings are offered to various devatas. So this is the process. One cannot directly please devatas without pleasing the Supreme Lord Krishna. Many people don't know that. If you worship devatas without worshipping Supreme Lord Krishna, it is a avidhi purvaka, it is not a authorized method of worship. In any worship, the enjoyer should be the Supreme Lord himself, because everything is owned by the Supreme Lord, everything belongs to the Supreme Lord Krishna. We cannot take the ingredients and the resources from the creation of the Lord and try to please someone else who is not the Lord. So it becomes aparadha, it is called an offense. It is called theft. If you go to someone's house and take all his resources and enjoy yourself or give it to someone else, that is called an offense, and it is a punishable offense. In the same way, utilizing all the resources in this creation to please a devata or a demigod is not sanctioned in the scriptures. It is actually avidhi purvaka. It is incomplete worship because we are not recognizing the Supreme Lord. So any sacrifice which recognizes the Supreme Lord and pleases the Supreme Lord is a perfect sacrifice, and that gives peace to one's mind because he is in complete knowledge while performing the sacrifice. Secondly, Krishna says, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Krishna is the Lord of all planets. There are many devatas who are ruling different planets, but who has created those planets? Who have appointed those devatas in each planet? It is Supreme Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna is greater than even the greatest devatas like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Many people don't know this. They think that Brahma, Shiva and Vishnu, they are all equal. No. It is Vishnu, Krishna, who is supreme. His parts are all the devatas. So this is very important. We have to understand this. God is one, Asama Urdhva. No one can be equal or greater than God. So that person is Krishna. So from Krishna everything comes. Then Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam, the third point is, it is Krishna only who is the well-wisher and benefactor of all living beings. Lord Krishna is situated in the heart of every living being. Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hriddesha Arjuna Tishtati. Krishna says, I am the Ishvara, I am the Supreme Lord of all living beings, and I am situated in the heart of all living beings. So the Lord knows the desires of every living being. As the Father of all the living beings, it's the Lord who fulfills the desires of all living beings. It is said in the Upanishads that Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam Eko Bahunamyo Vidadhati Kaman. The Supreme Lord is Supreme Nitya. We are all eternal. God is eternal. We are eternal. But He is Chief Eternal among all the plural eternals. Then Chetanas Chetananam. He is supremely conscious. We are all conscious living beings. God is supremely conscious. We are limited within our own body. Our consciousness is limited within our body. We can understand, we can feel the pains and pleasures of our body alone. But the Supreme Lord, He knows the pains and pleasures of all living beings because He is everywhere. And then, Eko Bahunamyo Vidadati Kaman. That one Supreme Lord, He fulfills the desires of innumerable living beings. We may have desires, but we don't know whether we can fulfill those desires or not. Even we may work hard, but even after working hard, whether we will achieve those results or not, we don't have any guarantee. But the Supreme Lord Krishna, if He chooses, if He wishes to fulfill anyone's desires, He immediately those desires are fulfilled. So the Supreme Lord, He can fulfill the desires of innumerable living beings. So if one understands these three things, that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices, He is the master of all planets, both material planets and spiritual planets. Everything belongs to Krishna. He is greater than all the devatas. He is the supreme Lord of all devatas. And the third point, Krishna is the best well-wisher of all living beings. If we understand these three things, we will achieve real peace and prosperity. So by accepting Krishna as Supreme Lord and acting in Krishna consciousness, by learning these techniques of how to serve Krishna with love and devotion from a spiritual master, we can live very peacefully, very happily and achieve this Brahma Nirvana stage, the stage of supreme liberation, which every living being is eligible to achieve. So that is the message of this 5th chapter, how to work in complete knowledge of Krishna, that is called Krishna consciousness. So by working in knowledge of Krishna, that Krishna is great, I am His eternal servant, my duty is just to please Krishna. That is perfection of our life, that is the perfection of Karma Yoga, that is called Bhakti Yoga. So gradually we have to move from Karma Yoga to Bhakti Yoga. That will be taught by Krishna in the upcoming chapters. So this is the end of this section. We will be understanding now chapter 6 in the next video. We will be understanding Hare Krishna.